Okay, so we're going to talk about titling today. Titles in your video are very important, especially for commercials or PSAs, which is what we're doing here in this class. But you may use them at any time for any reason. There's lots of different ways to do titling, but for just simple titles, you can use Premiere. Oftentimes, I like to use After Effects because I can do motion tracking and all sorts of other stuff with titles. But in Premiere, you can do titles, and you can do them very easy. So let's get out of our coloring. Let's go to our editing. The easiest way to do a title, to add a title, is to go into your project view, which is right over here. Down here, there is a new item button, okay, right at the bottom. Now, there's a couple different ways to do this. Let's go to Assembly. I actually kind of like Assembly better. So in Assembly, if you see here, this is my project, and you can see I've got several video clips, and then I've got this right here, which has a different icon. And what that is basically is this is our sequence. And if I move from a thumbnail view to a list view, you can kind of see it a little bit better. As you start adding titles, those are also going to kind of come up in your sequence. So the first thing that I would recommend, and I might even do a short demo on this, but I'll just put it out here in front. Being organized is really, really, really good. So you can right-click and you can create what they call a bin. I'm not sure why they call it a bin. It's a folder, okay? And then I can just call it clips, okay? And then I'm going to take any video clip that I add, I highlight them all, and I can drag them into that bin, and then I can close the bin. And now I've got more organized. And as I start to add titles, I can throw those in a bin. If you grab songs or audio, you can put those in a bin, and it just cleans things up really nicely. Okay, so that out of the way. To add a title, you just go down here to the new item, which is right next to the trash can, and the new bin button, which is right down there at the bottom. And you can also go and just right-click in the empty space and say new item. And then when you do that, you can go to title. Now, when you are creating a title, you can call it whatever you want. Title 1, Title 2. It depends on what you want to do. I would name it like intro or exit or whatever, but we'll just go with Title 1 for now. And then it's going to open up a new window, and notice that it puts the source video that you're looking at in the window. So wherever your timeline was set to, that's what's going to be in the background. Let me close this for a second. So if I have this over here and I double click on my title, you notice that nothing's there. So that's actually really important to do when you're creating a title, is to kind of put it where you want it to be, and then that way you'll be able to see what the title is going to look like with the source video behind it. That's very helpful. Then you have these two lines here. There's an outer line and there's an inner line. Now this isn't quite as much of an issue as it used to be many years ago, but we call this action safe and title safe. Action safe is the outer line, and that's generally considered the safe area where you can have action in your video and it's not going to be cut out. Some TVs actually crop in on your video, okay? Not very many as much anymore, and not to the level that they used to. With standard definition video and 4:3 TVs, the cut-in, what they call overscan, was up to 10%, which is crazy, and some TVs were better than others. These days, the TVs have gotten a lot better. So, what you want to do is just kind of keep that in mind. The inner line is considered the title safe area, and that's basically saying that all titles should be inside that box. And I push that a lot sometimes. I never put titles outside the action safe box, though, because you just never know what kind of device. In fact, in some ways today, with mobile devices being all sorts of different formats, it's almost more important now that I think about it to be careful of where you put your titles, because some people's devices crop to the side, some people can set the devices to crop to the top. you know, I think in an iPhone you can double tap and it zooms into full screen, right? When you're watching a video, well then you lose all sorts of stuff. So it's really important to kind of be aware of that and put your titles in the right place. To create a title, it's actually really simple. Well, actually, let's just go over a couple things. So over here on the left, you have your basic tools. You can create shapes. You can create the text. You can move it with the selection tool. You can rotate it with the rotate tool. You can create complicated shapes with the pen tool. We're not really going to go over that, but you can do, well, maybe we will. You can do text on a path, all sorts of really cool stuff. Then over here across the top, you have your typical font controls. So center, left justified, italicized, underlined, bold, that sort of stuff. And then you also can choose your fonts and your size over here. You can also toggle on or off the background video, which is kind of nice if you need to. And then over here we have a whole bunch of things that will start to pop up, including drop shadows and colors and all sorts of stuff once we actually put some text in there. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to take my text tool. Oh, and notice there's two text tools. There's a horizontal type tool and a vertical type tool. So that's pretty cool. So a lot of times what I'll just do is I'm just going to click, especially if I want the text to be centered, I'm going to click and drag a text box that goes from one line to the next. And then if I do that, what's good about that is then if I hit the center button, it's now automatically centered in the frame. If I know that I went from one edge to the other edge in the line, whatever my text is going to be is now centered. You'll also notice that now, all of a sudden over here in the right panel, we have a lot of information that was not showing up just a few seconds ago, and that's because we now actually have some text. So I can go in, I can grab the select tool, I can move this around if I wanted to. I can change its color. So I can change it from white to black or red, whatever I wanted to do. I can add drop shadow. Drop shadows are really cool. Let's make this a little bit bigger. So we can make our window a little bit bigger so you guys can see better here. And that drop shadow kind of has exactly what it sounds like. It's a drop shadow. Can I control zoom? I cannot zoom in that way. Okay, I thought control plus might zoom in. You can also click, when you select on something, you can go over here and you can center things horizontally or vertically, which is really kind of nice. So if I have this up here and let's say it's just off a little bit and I want to center it horizontally, you can go over here and it will center your text box right in the middle of the frame. So there's some really nice tools over here. If you have multiple text boxes, you can align them with the left and the right. There's some really nice things that you can do with these aligning tools over here. You can play with those. But they're generally not, you don't use them too much. You also have a bunch of titling styles down here. I generally stay away from them. I think that they're overly flashy and gaudy. I don't really like them. You can play with them if you want, but for the most part, most of them are going to be pretty hideous. Simple text is usually the best thing. You know, if your video is really good, really extraordinarily flashy text is going to detract away from your video. And if your video isn't very good, then extra flashy text probably won't help anyway, right? I mean, that's just, you know, the blunt and honest truth. So that I would stay away from them, but they're there, and you can play with them if you want. I don't particularly like them. Yeah. So you just click on it, and then it does a font style or an outline. Some of these simpler ones are cool, but then you start getting into these things, and it looks like, I don't know, a really bad children's book or something like that. I've seen a book that literally uses this exact font with this exact like gold thing. It's some dumb train. Spy Kids, yeah. I mean, and I guess if you're going for kitschy or gaudy on purpose, you know, and you want it to be kind of funny that way, then okay. The one good thing about these things is you can learn how to create your own, because when you click on them, all of a sudden you're going to see what all these properties change. These are just presets that use all the properties that are already there. So this font here that I just clicked on, I could have made that if I knew what I was doing over here in the properties tray. So, you know, again, it's kind of silly, but it is what it is. So, you know, you can just be kind of, you can play with it to kind of see what's available over here. That's maybe a good reason to have it. So that's essentially it. Now let's take a look at one really powerful thing, and that is, well, we can do shapes and stuff. So if I took a rectangle and I wanted to take a rectangle, I can, oh Lord, that's hideous. So notice that the rectangle came in with the same style as my font. So I'm just going to, yeah, we're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of you too. Let's just start this over again. So I just want to make a, oh, fantastic. So once you click on one of these styles, you can't get out of it. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so I'm just going to go back to a normal. So there we go. And then I have this rectangle, and I can go in and I can center it this way, and I can bring it here, and I can take my font. Let's make it black. Now the problem is that the rectangle was created first, so right-click, I can arrange it, and I can send it backwards. So now I should be able to bring my text in on top. Okay, make sure that's still centered. And I could click on my rectangle, and instead of having it completely white, I can take my opacity down to something like this. Alt key when I'm dragging allows me to size it from the center, which is nice. That's centered. That's centered. And so now you can see I could have a nice, and I can click and shift click on both of them and drag that back up. And now using a semi-transparent white rectangle, I can make my text stand out and yet not obscure the video too much. This is obviously bad placement because it's right over his face, so we wouldn't want to do that. I can also group objects, so right click, and I thought I could. Maybe I can't group them. All right, well, I'll just drag them together. So then I'll just bring it down here, and now you can see this is much better placement for the text. Actually, my inclination right now is to put it off to the right. So there we go. I could put this off to the right, and I can take the rectangle, make it a little smaller, and things are looking a lot better. The other really fancy thing that you can do is you can draw a curve. So I can take the pen tool, and I can draw a curve like this. But then what I can do is I can take my path along a type tool like this, and I should be able to click on it. I'm not sure why it's not. Okay, text on path. I'm doing it wrong. So it doesn't work like Illustrator. I'll have to figure that out. Oh. Okay. Sorry, that took me a second. I haven't done that in a while. So here's how you do that. You take the text on path tool, you click, and you drag and hold, and you get these handles. And now you can take them and make a curve with them. And then you should be able to take the text tool, click on there, and it will put your text on the curve. So these pen tools are for making shapes. I thought they would just make a curve and that this would be your text tool, but it's been a long time since I've used this. So anyway, now what I can do is I can use this and I can alter the curve with that tool, and you'll notice that it allows me the ability to change the curve. Oh, it's not letting me center it. There we go. Nope, still not letting me center it. It allows me to change the curve and alter where the text is with this. It's just pretty cool how that works. And you can make some really neat shapes with your text. and it's not readable right now because of the color, but you know, if I were to take it and say go white instead of black with a black drop shadow, now it becomes a lot more readable. And I can play with the distance and that sort of stuff. So there we go. Now, once you're done, you can close the window, and now you'll notice nothing happened. Well, what you have to do now is you have to treat your text or your title slide just like anything else. We can just drag that down in here, over top of, it's coming in, but it's coming in really small. So it comes in like a still image. So now I have my title slide. Oh, I bet you there's another one in there. Yeah, I didn't even see it, but I did put the first one in. So now I can stretch it out, and it will be over top of my video. It's its own video clip. So you can add dissolves, you can add fades to it, you can do all sorts of really cool stuff. You can do effects with it. There's also anything that you can do to a regular video clip or still image, you can do to the text. Then when you're ready to do another one, you just move over to the next one, right-click, and say New Item, Title. And it will start with a second one, and you can start from that. If you have a style that you've built with the first title and you want to keep that, then the easiest thing to do is to right-click and duplicate it. So now I've got title 01 copy, and I'll just call it title 02, and now I can go back in and I can change it. Go back out and drag it in here. Now the reason why it's coming so small for me is because I think I have still images set to 1 frame instead of 10 seconds, which is the default. Text. Okay, get it? So that's basically how you work with titles. I will do another demo later on to show you how to bring in graphics, so that if you have a logo or something for your PSA, we can drop those in, but at least you can kind of sort of get started on this. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah? All right, let's go.